okay? And let me let you in a little bit about myself, just so you know. I love this freaking business. I have done it since the 60s. I'm in my 5th decade of doing stand-up because I started when I was in grade school, standing up for 5th grade English class every Friday. I was so good that the English teacher loved it, and she had me headline the room. It was the 60s. I got my first paying gig in stand-up in the 70s. And believe me, there wasn't comedy clubs around like you guys right now have. You know, you're lucky in some respects and you're not so lucky in others. We'll cover that too. But I had to host a gong show in a club about as big as this in order to get on stage. I played the Chuck Barris part. I was so obsessed in doing it, there was nothing around me. I made something happen. I got on stage, and believe me, that was a valuable experience to me. I got to do a few jokes. I got to deal with the crowd. I got to bounce things off people. It was an invaluable experience I didn't even know I was getting, but it just creeped in on me. A lot of good education does that to you. It just creeps in. You don't even know you're doing it, but I was so obsessed to do it. That's how I got started. The 80s, I was just sucked into that comedy boom that you probably all heard, and it really was. It exploded in this country. Everybody had comedy clubs. Everybody was experimenting with comedy. We were all making 4 figures a week. It was not uncommon for a no-name to make $2 grand a week. Just because we were needed. We were needed and we were in short supply, and you know what that does? That's just basic economics. Gave us the leverage. Then along came the 90s, and we started getting chains, Comedy Club, Funny Bones, the Improvs, the Punchlines, started to be a little more difficult on people. A little bit of a slowdown, but not really. This business, you know, you always hear, oh, comedy's dead, stand-up's dead. But if you look around, I work a lot out of Michigan because I'm doing some stuff for University of Michigan right now, a humor project I got hired for. That state is amazing. How many comedy clubs there are and one-nighters there are, and every night of the week something's going on there. Those comics that live over there can drive 2 or 3 hours and be to, you know, great gigs where they can make $100 a night, $200 a night, sell their merchandise. So I don't see the comedy slow down. I think it's out there. It's not as predominant as it was in the 80s, but it's out there. There's lots of work for it. And there's always great work for comedy writers. Always. Doesn't matter how young or old or skinny or fat you are. If you're funny, you can find the work. So, and now in the 2000s, I'm still working, man. I got hired by, I first started writing for other people. I started writing for cartoonists. Mike Peters, Mother Goose and Grimm. You ever heard that strip? He was a cartoon for a while, and he was a national, in all the national newspapers. And I hooked up with him through networking, through finding people that enjoyed what I did, and I started writing for him. I got hooked in with Bob and Tom. I know they're not on the Chicago area, but they're a national morning radio show. I wrote for them. I wrote for anybody I possibly could. And then in the late 80s, along came Leno, and I put my balls on the line with him. I just said, look, I can write for your show. I can write some jokes. So he gave me a chance. I was like one of the first fax writers. He opened up that fax line and he allowed people to send him stuff, and that he would pay you so much per joke. I wrote my way on The Tonight Show. I sold him so many freaking jokes that he finally just gave up and said, hey, I got an office for you. And you know, said, come on out here. You're going to hate it. It's a job. And he was right. It was a job. But I got out there and did it. And I still do it. I have a satellite contract with it. I got a little stir crazy just being in that office at NBC every single day, you know, cranking out Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton, OJ jokes. They made me a lot of money, you know. And I had an exciting, surreal time at The Tonight Show. I ran into people that I worked with 2 presidents, Bill Clinton and George W. Bush. I was as close to Bush as I am to some of you right now. I could have got him. But I made him look smart. It was a thing. Jay was doing a crossword puzzle, and he couldn't figure this word out, and he heard this voice, hey, Jay, that's, it was a real complicated word, what turned out to be George W. Bush. That was the Jay. He was smart, and so I got to direct Michael Caine and saying, what's up? Remember when that was hot for a while? So I got to do lots of surreal things, and it was an amazing experience. But I was hot to do stand-up again, and so I took a few years off, didn't do it, but I got Jones to do it, and I got opportunities to do other things. So I didn't want to sign another 5-year contract with NBC, but I stayed with Leno's Big Dog Productions, and I still am to this day, and I still write for the show and send him stuff and produce bits, and but I do a lot of stand-up and stuff. Hi, Pops. Can I get you anything, like a watch?
I've got an excuse.
I wrote that. Doctor's excuse?
I've got an excuse.
All right. Mr. Challis. I was out buying a new screen. That's inside joke. Please excuse Pops for being late to class. He was late because he's an idiot. Mrs. Pops. Okay, accepted. So, anyway, I've been involved with this, for 50 years, man, it seems. Five decades, yeah. Comedy has been very, very good to me. And I still love it, man. I still love it, and I still do stuff. I worked on the Made in America show. I signed a contract with MTV. At my age, that was funny as hell. But I ended up working for CMT, which Viacom owns the whole thing. And my point is, I love it, man. But I know what I'm doing. In the 80s, I was doing writers' camps. I was bringing in comedians like yourselves, and we were doing writer stuff and everything. So, and that's sort of where the whole class concept came from, was out of those writers' camps. People got to know a lot of stuff. So anyway, blah, blah, blah. That's me. I just know my stuff. I think I do. I love it enough to know it. I've done my work on it, so I can be of some help. That's why we're here.